Here it is again. That's right. Another long game video. The good and the ugly of college football for this past week. That is week 3 of college football. Now, if you guys and gals don't prefer longer videos, just let me know in the comment section and I'll start breaking these down into shorter videos throughout the week. On deck, though, we have Penn State. Are they a contender? Jeff Lebby and the Oklahoma defense. Wholesome team, maybe? Maybe national contenders? Kansas Jayhawks on the rise. Nebraska's administration is in the ugly. Also in the ugly, Auburn and their boosters. Michigan State overrated, and much, much more. Oh, yeah, and those App State Mountaineers. Man, what a hell of a season so far. Let's talk about it. The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking. Woo! Another great week of college football, man. It just keeps getting better and better every week. And then it just goes by fast, man. We're already into week 3. That's like, what, 30-35% of the season already? And it's like we had to wait like for an eternity to get here. We've been talking about it all off season. It's finally here, and boom, like that, it's gone in a snap. So let's enjoy it while we can, boys and girls. And before I get into all the topics of the day, of the good and the ugly, I'd like to ask you guys and gals to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. My name is JPC. I'm also known as the OCF. That's the Outlaw of College Football. You can also be found on Facebook under Jesse Paul Clark, spelled Jesse without the I. That's right. And on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it here. The first thing on tab here, I have Appalachian State, man. Their season already has been a full season in 3 weeks. Already, App State has had an almost miraculous comeback win against North Carolina, where they're down by 20 and lost by some crazy score, 63-61 or something like that. Then they go on the road to 6th-ranked Texas A&M and upset them at the 12th man. Then you think, coming off an emotional win like that, usually these lower Division I schools, they can't keep it consistent, and that was playing out against Troy. And then it happened. A 53-yard, I think it was 53-yard Hail Mary. And then you saw the video after the game where the crowd was just converging from 2 sides of the street, like something out of a movie. And the same thing happened when they beat Michigan way back when Michigan was 5th. I think it was back in the 2007 season or something. Same thing happened. And on top of that, they had game day there for the first time. So it's been a hell of a year already in Boone, North Carolina, of all places. And that's what makes college football so great, is these epic stories take places in places that you just never can predict. You try to predict it, but you just can't do it. Hell, I think we all need to go do a game in Boone, North Carolina one weekend. What do you say? Get all the boys and girls together, get all the common Joes and Sal's in the know, and head on down to Boone. Also, Penn State is a part of the good as well. Penn State's running game was pretty epic against Auburn. It was a running game that they didn't have last year, and that's why Clifford, for the most part, was on his own last year with Penn State. But this year, they seem like they got it put together somewhat. But I wouldn't read too much into this victory like Joel Klatt was doing earlier today, because Auburn's just not that good. And they're having a lot of behind-the-scenes crap that's keeping this team from gelling and keeping things from being on the up and up for Brian Harsin at Auburn. But nevertheless, Penn State did what they needed to do, and they did it big time, 41-12, with a great running game. And they could be a contender in the Big Ten. What do you guys and gals think? Penn State maybe a Big Ten championship contender? We'll see. Now, going to the bad a little bit. Speaking of Auburn, I'd like to call out their boosters. The issue with Auburn is they could be a perennial power just about every year. I mean, they're one of the few teams that can boast having almost a 500 record against Alabama since Bear Bryant left. They've had a pretty good record against Alabama. They're basically one of the few teams that's been able to beat Alabama on the regular. So what's the problem? The problem is that when they get a good coach in there and things start going awry, or just the smallest inkling of any kind of controversy, you have these hard-headed jackass boosters, the guy that runs Yellowwood or something, and once upon a time, the guy that run Colonial Bank, They just can't keep their hands out of the program. And these boosters are the kind of boosters I've been talking about. The ones that ruined Alabama for a little while until Nick Saban came along and told them, hey, look, I'm not taking this job unless I got the keys to the castle and I'm the only person that can control who comes in and out of this castle. And until Auburn and Texas and Nebraska and teams like that can stop letting boosters get their way about everything, then you're going to have issues staying on top. You may have a few good seasons here and there, but as far as being a consistent winner, you can't do that with boosters meddling. They're not administrators, they're not coaches for a reason, because they're not good enough to do that kind of job. But they are good at meddling. And Auburn needs to get that out of their system. Also, back to the good, the Oklahoma Sooners are starting to look like a completely wholesome team. And it's becoming almost scary. You already got Colin Coward out there backtracking, as you saw with the video that I put out the other day. Now you got Joe Clack coming on here stroking the Sooners. This morning I watched his podcast. And man, he was throwing praise like upon praise on Oklahoma, especially Jeff Lebby and who's the Bill Biedenbaugh, the offensive line coach, and how the offensive line coach Biedenbaugh has basically made them a much more physical offensive line. The physicality that they're showing, especially against Nebraska, is something you just didn't see last year or in the last few years with Oklahoma. Now, I know Biedenbaugh's been there before Brent Venables, but he was somewhat handcuffed by old Linky Boy and the way he wanted to do things. Well, now Biedenbaugh's got the reins, and Brent Venables is letting him do his job. He's delegating appropriately. And that's why you have this sudden gelling of the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. Now, the main thing, I think, the reason why the offense is getting off to a fast start and looking like it's gelling so quickly is one guy. That's Dylan Gabriel. And I've talked about him before. Dylan Gabriel, had he not come to Oklahoma, Oklahoma would probably be in a lot of trouble right now. But Dylan Gabriel already knows the system that Jeff Lebby runs. He knows what Jeff Lebby expects. He knows what kind of offense he wants run. He knows what kind of check downs he wants. He knows what this man wants already. So that's been a big plus that nobody really wanted to talk about early on because they wanted to see first. Well, now they see. They're gelling. And the defensive side of the ball, they shut Nebraska down. People will be like, well, that's Nebraska. They suck this year. They're 1-3. Yeah, but Nebraska's offense hadn't sucked all year. Nebraska's offense has been scoring on people left and right. I mean, it ain't the offense's fault. They put up 42 points against Georgia Southern, and the defense couldn't hold Georgia Southern to less than 42 points. And that's not on the defense. I mean, that's not on the offense. That's on the defense. So going forward, they might want to think about question who's Oklahoma played so far as far as shutting down offenses and whatnot. Because Nebraska has been in every single game for the past year or two. That's the first time they've been blowed out in quite some time. They've been playing everybody close. They played Ohio State to a 9-point game. So, yeah, I think it's about time that the national media start giving Oklahoma the kudos. And it looks like they are trying to. But I don't like the way they're trying to do it. You know, they're trying to lube them up and act like they've been on their side the whole time. And they haven't. Now, moving down to the ugly again. Nebraska's administration. I just talked about this with Auburn. You've let your administration and your boosters get in there and just cluster things up. The AD, Trev Alberts, is probably the one that needs to be fired at this point. I mean, how are you going to let a booster, and I know that's what happened, they won't admit to it, how are you going to let a set of boosters pressure you into letting go of Scott Frost 2 weeks before his buyout goes down exponentially? You lost $7 million, and then you turn around and got your ass blowed out by one of your oldest rivals and embarrassed on a big stage in your own house. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? Did you think they was going to rally behind Mickey Joseph like he was some kind of coaching version of Rudy. That was one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen an administration make. And then on top of that, just yesterday, they fired the defensive coordinator. They don't even have a coaching staff. And also, instead of making Mickey Joseph this emotional hire as an interim coach, do the right thing and make Mark Whipple the head coach. The man's got experience running a football team. Now, maybe Mark Whipple didn't want to do it. I don't know. But this experiment with Mickey Joseph, it's just not going to work out. I hope it don't, for Nebraska's sake, because you know what happened with LSU? They hired Ed Orgeron in as an emotional hire. And yeah, he won a national championship with Les Miles as recruits. But then when he started getting his own system in place and doing the things he does in an Urban-esque type way, because him and Urban Meyer are on the same page as far as doing perverted shit, things started going downhill. So I don't think they need to stick with Mickey Joseph. I mean, they need to go out and find, and that's probably what they're trying to do anyway. They're trying to just get ahead of the game. But I think they should have waited 2 more weeks and saved them $7 or $8 million. Back to the good. The Kansas Jayhawks are 3-0. That's right, not Kansas State. Kansas, the Jayhawks, 3-0. And it's not against scrub teams. Sure, the first week was a scrub team, but then they beat West Virginia on the road at night at Mountaineer Field, which is no small task. Then they turn around and beat Houston, who is now 1-2, granted, but Houston was thought in the preseason to be this year's Cincinnati, someone that could maybe crash the Power 5 party and make it to the playoffs this year. And they beat them 48-30. And all these games, these big games, have been on the road. So now they get to come home this week. So now we'll start to see if Kansas is the real deal. And then maybe if the Kansas Jayhawks maybe even going bowling this year, maybe even more than that. Could win 8 or 9 games. And if they do, Lance Leopold probably won't be around for long at Kansas unless they pony up and take some of that money that they put in basketball and try to keep his ass. Maybe Nebraska should look at that. But you see, with Kansas, they did it the right way. You see, Kansas started out and they was getting blowed out and stuff. He come in, he's getting his system in. Then they started losing games close. That's the second step in the process. A lot of people don't want to do that. They know that you're going to lose when you come in, maybe lose big, but then they want to go from losing big to winning big. And it just don't work like that. Well, Leopold's doing it right. Kansas went from losing big to losing small to winning small to maybe now winning big. I called 18 points over Houston, who was considered a good team at the beginning of the year. I call it a big win on the road. So, all I can say is, watch out for the Jayhawks. Also, on the bad, or the ugly, whatever you want to call it, Ohio State left their starters in the game until 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter against Toledo and beat them 77-21. Now, I don't have a problem at all. I really don't. I don't care how many points you score. You could score 105 points. As long as you do it with your fourth and fifth string. And that's a given. That's etiquette 101, Ryan Day. And I heard from a lot of people they left their starters into the game until the 4-minute mark. Now, I haven't really checked into that completely. But from what I'm hearing, I mean, really, you don't want to get your third and fourth string players some playing time. You know, they bust their ass in practice. The scout team bust their ass in practice. And you don't want to get them in the game and let them score. Now, if I'm incorrect on this and I've been misinformed, you Ohio State Buckeyes out there, y'all drop in the comment section and let me know. Also, Jimbo Fisher. Oh, Jimbo. Everybody thinks the monkey's off his back now. Well, they won 17 to whopping 9 from Miami. We all know Miami's going through a transition as well. Texas A&M just lost to Appalachian State last week. So everybody's like, well, hey, they come back and they beat Miami, who's a ranked team. I'm going to be honest with you. Neither one of those offenses scare me. Neither one of those teams need to be ranked in the top 25, in my opinion. That's 2 games in a row now that Texas A&M has scored 14 and 17 points. And Jimbo Fisher is supposed to be this big offensive guru genius. Well, and he needs to evolve because he don't have an offensive coordinator, from my understanding. And the only way to evolve, Jimbo, in my opinion, for you, is to delegate and to hire an offensive coordinator. And you be the CEO, coach, like most of these coaches do, like Nick Saban does, like Ryan Day does, like Dabo Swinney does. You need to delegate. You need to learn how to delegate, brother, because it's passing you by. And like I said in the previous podcast, that offense that you're running expired in 2014. Also, Ole Miss is looking good. 42-0 over Georgia Tech. Yes, I know Georgia Tech's not that good this year. But once again, my theme this whole football season is do what you're supposed to do. That's what they did. And for Lane Kiffin to actually have a defense that is shutting people out, it could bode really well for the Ole Miss Rebels. It could be a pretty scary situation for the SEC West, considering Texas A&M don't look as good as everybody thought they would. And Alabama, they've looked good, but they haven't looked as great as everybody thought they were. And that's all I got to say about that. You guys and gals, tell me what you think. Well, it's sure good, bad, and ugly. Drop in the comment section. Also, there's a heart up underneath here. If you don't mind, click on that. Throw a few dollars in the coffers. Get us off this YouTube teat. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.